cappuccino costs $5.52 in Vaduz, Liechtenstein. That's more than most people pay for an entire meal in some countries. Today, we're diving deep into the cost of living in one of Europe's smallest and wealthiest nations. Specifically, what it actually costs to live in Vaduz, how salaries stack up against expenses, and whether this tiny alpine capital is worth the premium price tag. By the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly what your money gets you in this microstate and how it compares to living in major Swiss cities. Let me hand this over to someone who's been digging into the latest 2026 cost data from Vaduz.
So Vaduz is the capital of Liechtenstein, which is this tiny country sandwiched between Austria and Switzerland. And here's the thing, they use the Swiss franc as their currency, which immediately tells you something about the price level we're dealing with.
Right, and when I saw the exchange rate data, $1 USD gets you 0.78 Swiss francs, I knew we were in expensive territory.
Exactly. And the page content from February 2026 shows some pretty eye-opening numbers. Let's start with food, because that's where you really feel it day to day. A simple McDonald's meal costs $17.14, and that's just fast food.
Wait, $17 for a Big Mac meal? That's what I'd pay for a decent sit-down lunch in most places.
And it gets more intense from there. An inexpensive restaurant meal runs you $28.57. If you want a 3-course dinner for two at a mid-range place, you're looking at $11428.
So we're talking about $57 per person for a decent dinner out. That's serious money.
But here's where it gets really interesting, the grocery prices. According to the data, a gallon of milk costs $2.19, which actually isn't terrible. But then you get to cheese. A pound of local cheese is $28.57.
$28 for a pound of cheese? I mean, I know it's good cheese, but wow.
And beef is where things get really wild. $74.28 per pound for beef round steak. The page content specifically mentions that food prices in supermarkets are higher than in the United States.
So if you're cooking at home, you're still paying premium prices. What about the basics? Bread, eggs, that kind of stuff.
A loaf of white bread is $4.25, and a dozen eggs cost $6.17. Even simple things like apples are $3.43 per pound. The data shows pretty much everything is marked up significantly.
Okay, so food is expensive, but let's talk about the big one, housing. What does it actually cost to live there?
This is where the numbers get really serious. According to Expatistan data from November 2024, a furnished studio apartment in an expensive area runs CHF 1,202 per month. That's about $1,540 USD.
For a studio? In an expensive area, but still.
And if you want something bigger, an 85 square meter furnished apartment in an expensive area costs CHF 2,039 monthly, around $2,600 USD. Even in a normal area, you're looking at CHF 535, which is about $1,970.
So we're talking about $2,000 to $2,600 a month for a decent apartment. That's actually not as bad as I expected for a place like this.
Right, and when you add utilities, the data shows about $188 monthly for basic electricity, heating, cooling, water, and garbage for a 915 square foot apartment. It's expensive, but not completely insane.
What about getting around? Transportation costs?
A one-way public transport ticket is $4.57, and a monthly pass costs $57.14. Gasoline is $2.21 per gallon. But here's something interesting. If you want to buy a car, a Volkswagen Golf costs $34,283.
$34,000 for a Golf? That's like luxury car pricing in most places.
Exactly. And a Toyota Corolla runs $44,002. The page content shows that cars are significantly more expensive than in many other countries.
Okay, so everything costs more. But here's the crucial question. What do people actually earn there? Can they afford these prices?
This is where it gets really interesting. According to the Novo Expat data, the average monthly salary is $5,315.07. And they estimate that $4,164 per month is considered moderately priced for living expenses.
So you're earning about $5,300 and spending about $4,100. That's actually not a terrible ratio.
Right, you've got about $1,200 left over each month, which is decent. But remember that $4,164 is for moderate living. If you want to eat out regularly or live in a nice area, you're going to blow through that salary pretty quickly.
And I imagine there's a huge difference between Locals who've been there forever and expats trying to figure out how to make it work.
Absolutely. The Expatistan data actually warns that their estimates are based on limited data points and should be treated as best guesses. For a family of 4, they estimate monthly costs at CHF 5,888. That's about $7,550.
So a family needs to be pulling in some serious money to make it work comfortably.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. Let's compare this to Zurich, which is famously expensive. The city cost comparison shows that Vaduz is actually 11.4% cheaper than Zurich without rent and 19.9% cheaper with rent.
Wait, Vaduz is cheaper than Zurich? That's not what I expected at all.
I know, right? The data shows that for a solo person, you'd need $7,309 in Vaduz to maintain the same standard of living that costs $8,600 in Zurich.
That's a significant difference. So if you're choosing between living in a major Swiss city or this tiny Alpine capital, Vaduz might actually be the better deal?
For certain things, yes. The comparison shows that rent in Vaduz is 33.8% lower than Zurich. Restaurant prices are 3.2% lower, but groceries are actually 1.8% higher in Vaduz.
That's such a weird economic dynamic. You'd think the tiny country would be more expensive across the board.
But here's the kicker. The data shows that local purchasing power in Vaduz is 19.7% higher than in Zurich. So not only are some things cheaper, but your money goes further.
That's actually kind of mind-blowing. So what's driving these prices? Why is everything structured this way?
Well, think about it. Liechtenstein has only about 38,000 people total. Vaduz itself has maybe 5,600 residents. There's basically no competition for anything, and everything has to be imported.
Right, and they're using Swiss currency, so they're essentially tied to Swiss price levels, but without the scale economies.
Exactly. The page content mentions that Liechtenstein uses the Swiss Consumer Price Index for inflation calculations. They're basically riding Switzerland's economic coattails, but in a much smaller market.
And I'm guessing the fact that it's a tax haven brings in wealthy residents who can afford these prices, which keeps them high.
That's a huge factor. When you have a concentration of wealthy individuals and businesses, the local economy adjusts to those income levels. A $97 pair of jeans doesn't seem crazy when you're saving massive amounts on taxes.
Wait, $97 for jeans? I missed that one.
Yeah, the data shows Levi's 501s or similar cost $97.14, and a summer dress from Zara or H&M runs $51.4. Even basic clothing is premium priced.
So if you're moving there, you better pack light and shop online for clothes.
Or budget for it. The data also shows that a fitness club membership costs $62.98 monthly, and a movie ticket is $22.86. Entertainment isn't cheap either.
$23 for a movie? That's like premium IMAX pricing in most places.
And if you have kids, private preschool costs $228.56 monthly, while international primary school runs $13,987.63 annually. Family expenses add up fast.
$14,000 a year for elementary school. That's like private university costs in some countries.
But here's what's interesting. Despite all these high costs, people are making it work. The salary data suggests there's enough economic opportunity to justify the expenses for many residents.
So it's expensive, but it's not necessarily unaffordable if you're plugged into the right economic ecosystem there.
Exactly. And remember, you're getting access to Swiss-level infrastructure and services, plus the tax advantages of Liechtenstein residency. For some people, that math works out really well.
It's like paying premium prices for a premium lifestyle in a premium location.
And the comparison data shows it might actually be a better deal than other premium locations like Zurich. You're getting more bang for your buck, even at these high absolute prices.
So when you step back from all these numbers, what's the real takeaway here? Is Vaduz worth it?
It depends entirely on your situation. If you're earning a good salary and value the unique combination of Alpine lifestyle, tax benefits, and Swiss quality infrastructure, the premium might be justified.
But if you're just looking for a place to live cheaply in Europe, this is definitely not it.
Right. The data shows this is a place for people who can afford to pay premium prices for a premium experience. It's not a budget destination by any stretch.
And I think what's fascinating is how these numbers reveal the economic reality of microstates. When you have 38,000 people total, normal market dynamics just don't apply.
Absolutely. You're essentially living in an economic bubble where everything is optimized for a very specific type of resident. Wealthy, internationally mobile, tax conscious.
Well, there you have it. Vaduz isn't cheap, but it might be cheaper than you think, especially compared to other premium European locations. The next time someone mentions moving to a tax haven, you'll know exactly what kind of grocery bills they're signing up for.
And remember that $5.52 cappuccino we started with? In the context of a $5,300 monthly salary and Swiss level purchasing power, it might actually be reasonable. It's all about perspective.